Oh, here, let me get the seeds to show you. So as I hop around, here's the dried seeds that I dried from a pepper plant that I have, and so it takes a little bit of a while to dry, and then I put them into this pot, and so I just threw a whole bunch of them in there, just hoping that one of them would sprout and grow, and I eventually wanted some peppers. So actually what happened is I put a bunch of seeds in, and 3 sprouts came out. I have the other one in the kitchen, but so there was 3 sprouts. One of them was this guy, and one of them was this really large, fruitful, like there's flowers on this one. I don't know if you can see them very well. Flowers, buds, yeah. And so, however, only one of them really grew because he was the one taking up all the nutrients from the soil, and the other 2 sprouts were kind of just like stunted at a certain point, and they just stopped growing. So I eventually just took out the 2 small sprouts, put them in their own little pots, and supported them so that they would have their own little space to grow. And now this one, which when I had these little sprouts in with it only grew up to here, has since doubled in size and now has some beautiful flowers. So it's beginning to mature, and it has the potential to bear fruit now. So remember the verse about taking Apollos aside and explaining the ways of God more accurately? This to me proves that God desires us to constantly, again, I repeated it, but this is like just really important. This proves that God desires us to constantly be learning more about him so that we may first get to know and love him better and then lead others to do the same. So every day we should be soaking in his presence, reading his words to us, and discussing with a fellowship of believers so that we can increase our sphere of influence. In the same way, a plant will not flourish if it is not daily given the attention of water, food, and sunlight, and most importantly, room to grow. So I would have really, really loved to do this planting activity with you guys and bring in seeds for you and pots and soil and water so that you could like see this picture for yourself of how without daily attention and water and growth and transferring to bigger plots, a plant will not grow. But since we can't do that, I'll do this little example for you. Here's a bok choy plant that I have. Sorry to change plants on you. I hope that's not confusing. But for a while, I've been growing it in this bucket of water, and it used to be just this little like center piece. And now it has roots that are pretty strong network now. But I've decided that it's definitely time to bring it from just water to soil in this basket. And I'm going to see how it does in there. But the picture that I wanted to paint for you is, there's a verse in Hebrews 5:12-14 that is about going from baby food to like milk to bread and like solid food. And this is an analogy for spiritual food. So I'm going to be taking this plant from just water and like growing these tender roots to planting it in a pot of soil so that it can actually grow more and bear fruit. And so that I can actually eventually eat this. There's some beautiful flowers on it right now. But yeah, okay. I don't know how much of this you can actually see, but there it is. And now I should have prepared paper towels. But yeah. Okay. So, now a question that I encourage you to ponder is what would happen to these plants if, sorry, it's really messy. What would happen to these plants if I just let them live in their little buckets of water or in their tiny little pots where they had no room to grow, they had no sunlight, I wasn't daily watering them, I wasn't giving them fertilizer. And you're probably like, duh, like they wouldn't grow at all. Like nothing would happen. And that's the point I want to get across to you. This is why I wanted to give you your own plants, because so you could see the daily like need for constant attention and growth and food. And in the same way, our spiritual lives and our faith will not grow. It'll just kind of stunt at a certain point if we're not daily making sure to rest in God's presence, read His Word, talk with others, and then grow our sphere of influence. Just like Priscilla and Aquila were given the food from Paul, given the discipleship, the theology, the biblical training, and then they were able to give it to Apollos, and he was given the discipleship and training, and then he was able to teach it to others. So, a practical way that I would encourage you to apply this to your own life is to, beginning like today, is first of all, there's some verses, which I'll post these on the discussion post for you all so you can see. But in 1 Peter 2:2 and Hebrews 5:12-14 and 1 Corinthians 10:3, these are all about spiritual food and how we need continual growth. I'd encourage you to read these in context, of course, because that's really important, and apply like a devotional journaling system to it. So read them in context, the whole passage, preferably the whole book, and then the passage itself. Find 5 questions, 3 lessons that you learned, and 2 applications to your life, and ponder ways that you can make a regular habit out of diving into the Word and becoming excellent female theologians, which God knows the world needs more of. So once you've done this for yourself, share with friends who are equally as eager to learn and know God, and this will create a strengthened body of believers. Second of all, I would encourage you to grow your own plant, and just see how much you really need to be taking care of it in order for it to grow and bear fruit. You can't leave out any of the steps. You need the soil, the sun, the water, and advancing to larger pots, and then eventually the pruning. So another cool thing about this bok choy plant that I want you to remember is without this process of taking it from just growing roots to putting it in soil and then gradually planting it outside when it gets warmer, without that process and without that difficult transition, it would not bear the fruit that I want. Gradually, the harvest would become really slim and wilty, and it would not flourish in the way that it's meant to. And we usually hear the phrase grow despite or bloom despite diversity, but if you know anything about plants, they actually need the diversity to grow. They need a strengthening situation where parts of them will die and wither and parts of them will fall off, but then what's left is this beautiful, strong plant that will continue to grow year after year. So, yeah, just to conclude, takeaway is the water is our worship, which is like soaking time in God's presence. The food or the soil is our spiritual food, which is reading His Word. The sunlight, I would compare to shining a light on the Word with input from friends and pastors. And then transferring to a bigger pot is us being sent into our own sphere of influences and having room to grow and bear fruit and give to others. All right. Thanks for listening. I know that was kind of long-winded, but I hope you really enjoy your days, and hopefully this helps. And I'm super excited to watch the rest of your devotionals. All right, bye.